Okay. Thank you.
I will call our meeting order at this time. We welcome all in attendance. Mr. Danny Sullivan will give the invocation. Chad Kent will lead us in the pledge. If you would rise.
Let us pray. Father, we just come before you in the name of Jesus, Lord, and give you thanks. Lord, you have blessed us mightily, Lord. We thank you for it. And Father, we just pray now that one thing we want to do, Lord, just everything be according to your will, Lord. That what we do, that we find favor in your sight, Father. It's in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On approval of agenda, I know of no changes. A motion.
Make a motion, we approve the agenda as
Motion. Commissioner Edwards, do I hear a second?
The second.
Commissioner Sellers with a second. All in favor? Unanimous. New business, item A, audit report.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Campbell Osteen to give last year's financial audit report.
Good evening. Thank y'all for having me. I always like to make a point of that. Thank y'all for allowing us to continue working with the county. It's always a pleasure to come here and work, and we appreciate that. And we got a long-standing relationship that we feel like is fruitful for both parties. So I know there's some new faces here since last time I've spoke. So welcome to y'all as well. Look forward to working with you. And what I've presented y'all, everybody should have a packet. There's one kind of large binder, one small one, and then within that large binder, the first page, there'll be a single sheet printed out. And so what that is, the smaller copy is the management letter. That's our communications directly to y'all as the board, just regarding the performance of the audit. The larger packet is the actual financial statement audit itself. It's got your audit report, financial statements, notes, etc. And then the printout is just kind of a real quick snapshot of some of the key numbers that we know matter to you as commissioners. And that's more or less what I'll be going off of this evening. And if anybody has any questions while I'm going through this, please feel free to interrupt me. There's some page references listed on this sheet as well. That's referencing the audit report. So if you want to look at anything in a little better detail, it will be there. So to start with, up at the top, we're looking at the government-wide figures. And so what that is Appleton County as a whole. All of your governmental funds, the landfill fund, which is proprietary, and that's everything rolled up and shown in total. So looking at that, you can see the total net position there. We see an increase actually for the government-wide of about $7 million. And so a good chunk of that was some capital projects that were completed. So at the governmental level, those are shown as expenditures, then government-wide, they're capitalized, they increase the assets of the county, therefore increasing the total net assets. The unrestricted net position also saw an increase for the government-wide, and that portion of that's related to the pension liability. So actuarial valuations on that, we receive those and we apply them to those figures. And so the total liability actually decreased. That's due to the market in that year, different factors there. So that was a good portion of that. As you can see, total governmental revenue increased quite a bit, which is good. So The total revenue increased from about 32 million to about 37 million from 2023 to 2024.
What all is included in that, Campbell? Total governmental.
Total governmental revenue is everything. So that's your property taxes, grants, intergovernmental, sales tax, SPOS, LOS, T-SPOS,
Okay. So all your
landfill
money.
revenue, you know, the money coming in at landfill is included in that figure. So that's all the money that came into the county for this year, pretty much is in that figure there.
Gotcha.
So then the total assets of the county, that's your cash, your prepaids, your capital assets, your receivables. Again, you see an increase there at the government-wide level from about 74 to about 81 million. Moving down, this is going to be the governmental fund level. So the ones listed here are the major funds for the county. And that's determined as a percentage of total assets, liabilities, revenues, and expenditures, is how the major funds are determined. And so as you can see in 2024, there were a couple additional funds added into the major fund. So we do have a comparison for the funds that were major in 2023 compared over. And so both of those two new funds were actually completely new funds to the county. One of those being the 2024 SPOS, which didn't start collections until fiscal year 2024, and then the LMIG fund. So last year, with the additional revenues coming in, the county elected to actually treat those funds in their own fund, whereas historically they had been going into the general fund. So accounted for the same way as intergovernmental revenue. That's the only funds coming in there being spent out on those LMIG road projects. So the big one obviously is general fund, and like I said, we've got the kind of the major figures there. Did see a decrease in cash in the general fund from 23 to 24. Part of that, again, like I said, is related to some of those capital projects. There was some pretty large road projects completed during fiscal year 24, and obviously the money going out is accounted for there. You see a slight increase in receivables. So what that number includes is your property taxes receivable, current month sales tax, and things like that. And there are some kind of quote unquote trade accounts receivable, different things included in that figure. So you're due from other funds. You can see that in the general fund and the offsetting figure there in the SPOS. That money is still sitting there. It's been discussed about as the money's there, it's being moved back. It's basically reimbursing general fund for some upfront expenditures that were made for the 2018 SPOS. So you'll see that number come down. There was in the general fund a slight decrease in your unassigned fund balance, and so that is your fund balance that's available for everything, for operations, capital. There's no restrictions on what those funds can be spent on, and you see the total fund balance did come down a good bit. And once again, that's tied to those LMIG funds that were historically sitting in the general fund, and they had been received and not expended, so they were shown as restricted for capital. And as those funds get spent out, brings down your restricted fund balance without affecting your unassigned fund balance there. Revenues for the general fund were up by about 1.8 million. And then you can see expenditures were up to offset all of that increase. Some various factors there, inflationary factors, the capital expenses was a big chunk of that. There's also we'll get to it a little later, what's classified as interdepartmental, and that's related to, the big thing there is health insurance, and as everybody knows, those costs just keep going up as well, so that's a factor there. And the total transfers that you see under the general fund, a portion of that is what is paid out for the E911 department. So that's actually shown in its own fund, the revenue and expenditures, and basically the difference between what E911 brings in as revenue and what's spent to operate it is a transfer from the general fund to operate that. And then there's also a portion of that that was a transfer to the landfill. And that's for actual cash plus, operating expenses paid by the general fund for the landfill. 2018 SPLOST, we'll try and go through these other ones a little quicker. Cash increased. As you can see, there's no receivable there. That's because those collections ceased. So moving forward, that fund balance number, as well as the cash number, you're just going to see that number start coming down as those projects for the 2018 SPLOST continue and are wrapped up. And I believe, Reed, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's 6 years after collections cease. So from the date collections stopped, which was that December 31st, the county has up to 6 years to expend all of those funds on the SPLOST projects. T-SPLOST, we did see a little decrease there. That's, like I said, again, related to those road projects. It's just some funds that have been coming in that, as those projects came up, were spent out on those different capital projects. 2024 SPLOST is a new one, so that's where when 2018 stopped, 24 started, obviously. So you can see the cash building up there, as well as the receivable for those that would be September collections in this case. Your total fund balance is just kind of the offset there. As you can see, a good comparison to look at there, if you want to compare the SPLOST to the prior year, would actually be adding together the 2018 and 24 to get that full year's picture for revenues. So that's, if you want to look at it that way, to kind of get a true comparison year to year over the SPLOST revenues and expenditures. LMIG, like I said, that's one of the other new funds where that grant money from the state's coming in. You can see it was sitting there as restricted for capital projects at the end of the year, that fund balance. And the ARPA fund, just want to highlight that as well. Similar to 2018 SPLOST, you're just going to see that number coming down. Obviously, there's no more American Recovery funds coming in. And those funds, once again, I'm not sure about year to date, but just a kind of reminder for y'all, the requirements on those is to be fully expended before December 31st, 2026. And I know y'all have been working on, using those funds on the applicable things there. And there was one change in the accounting for that. I don't want to get too deep into it for y'all, but basically historically, there's numbers shown under accounts payable, and that's not really the best way to describe it. That's what accounting term for it is unearned revenue. And so historically that number was in your fund balance. The state kind of changed the way they wanted that shown. So it's still treated basically the same. Really the best way to look at ARPA funds is that cash balance that's sitting there. And that gives you, like I said, a true picture of, what's there to be spent. Moving on down, we've got the landfill fund. So cash did increase in the landfill, and that was due to as I mentioned earlier, the transfer from the general fund. So like I said, there's a combination of, physical cash transfers for the landfill to cover some expenditures, and then there's also things like where the general fund payroll, benefits, things like that are being paid out, and that's also transferred over to show as an expense in the landfill fund. So there was a little bit of a decrease in the revenues year to year for the landfill. And the big change there that you'll notice too would be that transfers number. And once again, the reason for that cash balance. I know historically it's kind of been the county will transfer a sum of money over to the landfill as that depletes, whether it be a year, 2 years, et cetera. Once that money starts depleting down, that's when the county will then transfer some more funds to that landfill account for those expenditures. At the bottom, just real quick, this is your non-major funds. So these are smaller funds for the county, not as much activity going through there. So the revolving loan fund, there was about $400,000 in cash at the end of the year. With that, I believe there's a couple notes outstanding there where the RLF has loan money for different businesses. The jail fund, once again, you can see about $40,000 in revenue there, $42,000 for the jail fund. The hotel motel fund, the only thing in that one is the hotel motel tax. It comes in, goes right back out, so that's why you'll see the revenue and expenditures tying there for no change in fund balance. Same with the emergency telephone, E911. So like I was saying earlier, you got the revenues there that E911 as a department actually generates, and then the total expenditures and the offset there is that transfer over from the general fund that's shown as transfer out. And also the opioid fund. So what that is, sure as y'all know, is where the opioid settlement monies are being distributed. So the county chose to, one of the options was to actually establish a separate fund just for those monies. And so that's where that money's coming in. As more of those settlements are completed, you'll see more money coming in. I think they're projecting some more revenue over the next couple of years related to those settlements. And those funds are restricted, pretty restricted funds on what they can actually be spent on as far as mostly law enforcement, drug prevention, things of that nature. Another thing just wanted to highlight for y'all, I don't have it on here just because it's a lot of information. The Schedule 1, that's the budgetary comparison schedule, so that'll show your final budget compared to the actual figures. That'll be on page 60 to 67 of this report. And I know that's a good tool, quick snapshot. It's general fund only, so you know, most of the operations there, everything else kind of has those prescribed expenditures, the restrictions on what can be spent. So kind of gives you a good look at, especially now, developing the new budget, kind of another tool there to kind of have in your tool belt to look at, compare, maybe make some changes, some thoughts. And that's really the highlights of the financial side. Does anybody have any questions, concerns?
I have a comment. Suppose our budget's $22 million.
Yes, sir.
And the state comes through like they have in these past year with additional funds for us for LMIG, road maintenance and so forth. That revenue comes in $1 million, whatever it is. It inflates our budgeted revenue.
Yes, sir.
Then when we expend it, we spend $1 million. Through no control of ours, our budget goes up, revenue and expenditure, because of things out of our control.
Yes, sir.
And so sometimes that makes our budget look like it's going up, when really it's nothing that we've done. It's because, you know,
Yes.
good graces that we
Yes.
get grants or
And
things like that.
there has been, especially, I know beginning last year, that was part of the reason for the LMIG fund. They've actually, the past year, I know this year and last year, the state's done 2 rounds of LMIG funding both years, which there's generally just the one. So they've done that. The normal LMIG with the local match restrictions, things like that. And then they've also done the LRA funds, local road assistance. And so there's actually no local match on those funds. Money comes in, be spent on the road projects.
And we
But like you said,
budget for the regular LMIG that we're aware of that we're going to
Right.
get, but the additional funding
Yes,
comes
sir.
in.
And these past couple years with everything, still, you know, coming out of COVID, everything's been kind of crazy. And I know the state itself has been still sitting on a very large surplus. And so that's why they've been kind of finding new ways to try and distribute those funds back to the local governments as well as to the taxpayers.
I could help them with that.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. We just
Yes, sir.
have to account for it, and that requires budget amendments and so forth.
Yes, sir. And that's what I was gonna say. That would be the big thing is, kind of that for the budgeting process would be, as those additional unplanned funds come in, you can amend the budget for those revenues as well as those new expenditures that, weren't factored for in this July or this June, whenever the budget's being worked on. And then come next June, there's, some unexpected funds coming in. That is a good option there, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions?
One of the practices that we've discussed is, being mind you, is for this board, and especially the new ones, is at the end of, after we do finish and finalize the budget, we go into an amended budget. First of October, that 1st of October, and do basically you're as close as you can get to what you've actually expensed, and then amend the budget, last year's budget. So that's kind of going to be the practice moving forward, I think, and we're going to work together on that too.
Right, and like we discussed, the budget really is a management tool for you as the commissioners, as well as, Reed as the county manager, to have that throughout the year and say, okay, we budgeted for this, we're already at 70% halfway through the year, what's going on here? And, not necessarily that, your department heads have to look at that and say, okay, I've only got 100 budgeted here, that's all I can spend. It's just, if you're butting up to 100, you got to have an explanation why. And that's really the purpose of it, is to kind of have a little more oversight, a little more accountability across the board. Because like you said, these are, public funds. So that's definitely, as we've discussed, Reed, that is it is a common practice. What Reed's discussing, several of the other municipalities that we work with do that process. So it's definitely something to consider moving forward. I would agree with that.
And not to alarm anybody, but we just got to this year, you will see an amended budget. If we get all of our collections from FEMA, our budget to the public will look like $40-something million, when really it's not $40-something million. It's the money that we got from FEMA that we've paid out. So don't let the budget alarm you. When we do get that at the end of the year, we do amend, and it says we've at $43, $46 million, $20 million of that is FEMA, or FEMA and GEMA money.
And like I said at the beginning, I know there's, 3 new faces, but y'all may remember a couple years ago, we did, suggest that process had to do then specifically with the DCA, because there was a thing about, making sure there were no expenditures over appropriations. So that's when we had to come in, and I can't remember who it was at the time. I know Ms. Robin was here, and we had to develop that amended budget at the end of the year to then be able, on the audit report, to show, the county as a whole, there were no individual line items that were over expended compared to budget. And generally speaking, it isn't, it is technically a finding in our audit that there's budget expenditures over appropriations. At the state level, it's really a non-factor as far as the state's concerned. Generally, other than, like I said, that one specific example with the DCA related to the CDBG project. But generally, like I've spoken with the manager at the Department of Audits, and she says realistically that and segregation of duties, they basically expect to see that on every audit report that gets submitted to them. Because those are ones just, economically speaking, it's basically impossible to hit every marker without amending, really after even we have come in and done our audit, proposed some adjustments, things like that, to really know what the final figures are. And then the same with the segregation of duties. It's just not economically feasible to have 15 people, 20 people working up here in the financial administration office. And even then, there may still be issues. So,
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Osterman.
all right. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
And one last thing, sorry, just want to say, Reed and Miss Robin both have my cell phone and email. If y'all have any questions or concerns looking through, anything additional comes up after this, please feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to go through it with you. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Please review the 26 proposed county budget. County manager.
So this is not yet a proposed budget, but I did want to have a workshop with y'all and kind of let's talk through where we're looking at. And so we're going to go through the departments and kind of let me show you where we're landing. I did went off, current payrolls, where we're at, what we're paying out, and kind of trended from 2023 all the way up to now to generate where we're at. So I put it on the screen because I use this, we can work through it. My plan will be to work through this, make any adjustments as we need to, go into formulating a draft budget, and then get ready for our regular budget process with the public hearings. And if we need to do an additional workshop, do it then too before we get there. So I'll go through and we can talk about changes. Feel free to interrupt me, ask questions, whatever we need to do. I did break this over here out separately, as you'll see to the right. I wanted to give this number, so this is salaries, the FICA, the liability, retirement, the health, electricity and fuel. I didn't go through and get telephone and everything else, because I just wanted to show you what a snapshot of the hard press number is. You're already at $14,600,000. That's, the total of the salaries and the FICA and the health insurance and liabilities and things like that. So keep that in mind as we go. The admin, you'll see a change here. Also, part of USDA, we have an agreement, we've had an agreement with USDA, the federal government, and when they had an employee, we paid half of the employee in benefits, they paid half. Well, they've come and met with me last week, and Mr. Ben said, right now, the federal government is not renewing that. That employee has been partial county employee, and so I went ahead and included the part that they had picked up in here, because that employee's been with us close to 30 years. And so he's hoping to pick it up before September, but he's gonna let me know month by month. So that's in there, as you'll see. Trending, the only change, there's a $32,000 change. You'll see it increased the total budget. I did have some line items that I went through and shored up and had some decreases. We did not budget for storm. We do not budget for storm, have not in years past, because you never know. And that's one of that things that I want to amend at the end of the year, what we've all encountered. This will be where it was at. Under Appling promotions, you'll see, I'll find it on here. I think y'all see the line item, Appling promotions. There's the area vac contract falls under that, along with some specialty advertising we've done, the chamber gala, and things of that nature. But that was a total increase right now of $32,000. Any questions on that one? Now, all the health numbers you see will be a projection based on the trend that we see. We're hoping it comes in closer to what last year's number is, but I want to go ahead and be prepared.
If the feds come through with half the reimbursement of the salary like they have in the past,
Then we won't.
then that
Then it'll
number will be
decrease.
just about the same as last year.
That's right. Seven Rivers is a pass-through. We are the payrollee, but they fund this fully. They send us the money to pay both. Tax assessor actually is a decrease. We do have part of that reassessment contract we've had in the past years is we're at the very last stage of it. So that's what you'll see a big decrease in that was. Their board did ask for potential raises, and in all the salaries I did put, if at the pleasure of the board, if y'all decide to do a 3% increase cost of living, it's already budgeted in here. So that'll be a projection up, down if we have to. But there was a few that assessor board did ask for additional increases, which we'll discuss closer to budget time.
So what's the professional service decrease? Was the GIS the
Yes, the contracts, yes, sir.
contract with them?
The tax commissioner, You'll also see a decrease. That was something to do with payroll. And like I said, I went through all the payrolls in every department and shared up based on realistic numbers. And then some of these departments, you'll see a new item that has not been included in the past, which is overtime. And that'll be in almost everybody's budget. And I'm breaking out what overtime is so that we can keep a handle on what's causing it if it goes up, or how we can decrease and what we need to do that. So I broke it out of their salaries. They have none in the tax commissioner's office. Let's see, probate court. You'll see a slight increase, and the FICA, I adjusted it to make it whole with what it's supposed to be. So that was a small, that triggered just a little bit. And then insurance liability, you'll see we haven't paid it to date, but those are things that hit at the end of the year. So those blanks you'll see fill in for actual dollars spent. And then I made the slight adjustment on the health insurance, as you'll see. Clerk of court, the same thing. I went through and adjusted the payrolls accurately with what realistically they are being paid, plus the increases that I factored in are already in that payroll number as well. The insurance, you'll see that was a big jump, 183 from last year to 200. Like I said, that's a projection. I'm hoping we're at 183, but better safe than sorry when it comes to budget. But theirs went from 718 to 733. Judicial admin, you'll see a slight increase. When I say slight, very slight. And that was more accurate here on the payrolls, where I just realistically got where we're at now. And a decrease on the elected made it back whole, what was right. And then the jury, bailiff, witness reporting to 90, which was a $5,000 increase. Total budget was less than $1,000 increase. District attorney, so as y'all know, we've been back into with the district attorney stuff, and he came and met with me and is only asking for any increase to keep his current staff that he has. When they broke it out proportionally, he would like for us to join into an IGA with Jeff Davis, and we be the payer, and all of our funds be paid to Glenn County for our portion. The reason for the increase in the request was last year it was not budgeted for the employees that we took on, that y'all agreed to take on. There was 2. So that, you see that big increase because of that. As a whole with the operating, you see the increase of about $6,000, and that was the difference of the pro rata share that he was asking for us to pay. Glenn County said they were going to pay the 42%, and then we prorated out with Wayne Applin, Jeff Davis, and Camden. And it only increased our operating for his office $6,000. That's still a discussion. And when I say this, as we move to drafting the proposed budget, I'll have a more hard number, but it should not be higher than that. I just wanted to give you the full, what this is the worst case with when it comes to the DA. Because there's still other discussions on his budget. I got a call tomorrow with Camden County to see what, based on their conversation, that happened. That was the only increase he asked for, but I did make the items up. You'll see in the 26 budget for the employees that we are currently paying that we took on as county employees. Juvenile court, slight increase, and you'll see it here with the attorney for indigent. You see we've actually spent $22,493. The year prior to that was $9,629. This is more of a management discussion. Me and the judge will talk about, and we'll see if we need to adjust when it comes to the attorney for indigent. But I did increase it slightly, but I've got to still have one conversation with him on why the actuals keep going up. Magistrate, you'll see a slight decrease, but after myself and Judge met, there's some things we want to fix on the building. And so that one of it is the basement floods. Everybody knows the basement floods. So we've got a plan in-house to fix some things, block up and shore up that basement. And they want to do some painting on the inside, some issues they've had on the walls that they want to get taken care of. So we included all that in this budget. The rest of it was pretty well what he had already sent over to me, and I went through and valued, and I agreed. So that's why I plugged these numbers in. I sent out all the budget worksheets to all the department heads to get their feedback of where they're at, what they need, you know, even what they want, so we could discuss it. But this is where I arrived at with my budget after meeting with them. I took out miscellaneous only for the fact, and this isn't all of them, and I'll go, maybe I hadn't missed one, I shouldn't have. Everything we do can fall under a line item, so the miscellaneous I removed. Public defender, the appropriation went up. We've got the contract in the office. It was an increase of around 30,000. And it's, I mean, based on salaries is what I seen the adjustments for. Sheriff's office, I've met with Gene, I've met with Mark. We went through, he gave me his budget sheet. There was a slight increase, but when I went and broke down the numbers, it really equated out to payroll. One thing I did do was break out the overtime, which myself and Gene discussed doing. And then, sure enough, what we actually are currently at with a 3%. And I'm awaiting, I think he's coming back to meet with me again to see if there's any future plans that we need to discuss, but this is where we're at. Corner, I increased that. This was based on a discussion. We removed the item that he didn't need, or that office didn't need, and with the additional responsibilities, we did increase the salaries for elected. I said, you know, there's a bill going up next, probably on the next agenda that's going to be, not here, but state level, that I see that changing to where we're going to see a mandate that we have to pay in a salary for in a corner for our population. So I do see that changing, but currently this is where we are with our budget.
On the coroner, was that strictly salary or was that per case?
That's strictly salary.
Strictly salary.
Per case, you'll see the coroner's inquest fees. This is where we pay out the call-outs. We're already at 8. I budgeted at 15 just to be safe, because you see the trend of last year, we're at 13.8. And that, I'm budgeting 15 to try to stay under, because that we don't control that number. And that's based on how many call-outs they have. We hope for less. E911 dispatch, you'll see there was a change there, but I went back and made the salaries item whole and broke out the overtime. In salaries, you know, in our policy, employees have the right to sell vacation time, PTO time, after they hit a certain mark. So that's also in the salaries. Ain't just solely, if they choose not to, it'd be solely salary, but this is also accounting for them selling any vacation time, and they can only sell it once. So keep that in mind as we look at salaries. Looking to make sure I didn't miss any big change. Health reimbursement was $5,000 of that increase, just to be on the safe side. And I think everything else pretty well aligned except for telephone. 2024, we were already at 29,000. We budgeted 18 last year, we're already at 21, so I wanted to make it right and realistic, so I moved it to 25, which is probably where we're gonna land closer to this year with the telephone. So some of these are just making the budget whole and realistic. Emergency management, you'll see I broke out overtime in theirs also. There was 2 requests that I'm still waiting on them to get back with me on some pricing for. We requested a vehicle to replace the ambulance that was given to us after the EMS was done, and it also got damaged. So they're down that vehicle. And then also we've spent a pile of money on a vehicle that Brent drives. And at this point, if we spend any more, it's worth, I mean, the repairs are way too much, and it's more than what the vehicle's worth. So I challenged them with giving me, finding a vehicle used, especially for the rescue vehicle, more operable, not an ambulance, but a more work truck that they can pack and put their tools on, something used, which is commonly fire departments do that. We find used vehicles. And then for the work truck, they're going to give me a quote, but or for the other truck, they're going to give me a quote, but I also have some trucks maybe available in our fleet that we're going to see if it'll work. So that's to be determined, but right now their budget is less than last. Their budget does not hold the calls either for rescue. You'll see that in the fire department budget. So this is strictly just the EMA management budget. Board of Elections, you'll see a decrease in it. We made the salary total. I did include and add the 5,000 overtime. We hadn't utilized it in the past, but I did see with the payroll reports where we had some hit overtime, and I'm sure it's during elections and things like that, so I'll put it in the budget. I'm not saying that we would use it or utilize it. That'll be up to the registrars or the election supervisor, but I did want to make it whole and give it actual and be realistic. Let's see, any big major change? I don't think that was it. I did, you will see this. So you see the health insurance change to prior year, we were 88. So we should be hovering around that 80 mark, depending on employees that we have in there. Currently we have less. I think there's plans to have less, so that's why you see me decrease that line item. Cooperative extension, you seen the increase, but some of that was already discussed prior with the ask for the salaries increase, where the UGA paid and then we pay half or partial. So that was the increase there. And I did decrease, to offset some of that, there was a decrease in fuel based on what we used last year at 29, and we're already at 14, so 3 was more common number, more realistic. 4-H did not change. Public buildings was to be a decrease by 40,000. Building repair and maintenance. Last year we were actually at 80. Year prior we're 62. We budgeted 135 and 100. Year before that I brought it back to 100, trying to just get it more in line and more realistic. Action Pack was a slight decrease, and there was just me going through theirs, looking and trying to assure up what's actual equipment purchases was one of the items that I took out, because there's not a need. They have not sent a request for an equipment purchase. I think last year, if I'm not mistaken, y'all had purchased a van or a vehicle for them at one point, last year or the year before. Last year. Heritage Center, it's the same as 2025. For the Heritage Center, there's already some allocated money in this year to do some repairs. I think has been allocated for a year or so now. We're actively searching, getting the quotes to do that. So I didn't see a need to increase the budget for this year. We'll have that work done before this year's budget. This budget kicks in. Public library, the only thing that you see changed is just the appropriation at 80. DFACS, the only major change you see is the appropriations. In years past, you see the trend. The actual spent in 23 was 10. The actual spent in 24 was 11. Year-to-date, we spent 21. The appropriation, and we appropriated 40 last year. I've not seen anything or been asked or requested, 25, to change or that, so I went back to 10,000, which was more realistic of what they're gonna spend. Health Department, no change. Road Department, you'll see increase, let me show you this. We were talking about the overages before. This is where you'll see, that when they were saying overages. So this was the projects that he was just referring to. When those projects come in, they run through it, it hits the road department under road construction, line item. I know Mr. Carroll don't like that because it makes his budget look crazy, but that's where it ends up landing. He wants to put it in admin, but I'm not a fan of that either. Makes mine look wonky. But that's what you'll see. So last year there wasn't any budgeted, and we have hit it with, you'll see the 7 there. And on the road project as we speak, as y'all seen, Holmesville, MLK, and we've got more planned that we have bid out. So that number, the actual number will change. What I will say is trying to be proactive. I did break out the overtime from their budget. We are down a few people staff-wise, but I think we do need to increase. And one of the biggest calls I get, I know it's the only call Mr. Carroll gets, but that'd probably be the only call that y'all get mostly, is roads. It's always roads. My dirt road's messed up. And we have had a lot of storms. And you're going to continue to have thunderstorms and washouts and 5 inches of rain. And I think the thing is to try to get to where we can react faster and get the job done, get the roads back open sooner. So I did an increase in payroll after discussion with Mr. Carroll to allow for potentially 2 more or 3 people. And then I also did an increase, which is the biggest change you see, to the equipment item right here. And this included, you may have to help me, you had to help me there. We did talk about, there's a ditcher already, because that ditcher's going back. So that was included in the original. So that's in there. We also had 2 graders, that's put in there. One, the idea behind that is to cut the mileage down that these graders are covering now. They're around 107, 111 miles, is that right? Per grader. So if we can trim that down by adding the graders, then that's faster. We'll get around to every road. Plus, during an event, the south end of the county had probably 4 or 5 inches of rain recently, and we had 8, if I'm not mistaken, roads that were shut with water coming over the roads. I'm not saying we can react and do anything any faster, but getting those roads back patched up with more graders and not lose any ground on what we're trying to grade around the rest of the county and pull those guys off to do that, I think is being proactive rather than reactive. Now, I will say this. In years past, the budget was up 4.9, 4.8. In 25, there was $1 million cut out of it. And so if you go back to what the 4.9 was, and I'm at 5.1 right now. And I think it's just trying to get proactive and get us caught back up because that's the #1 complaint we get. And y'all give me your feedback.
I see there's no item in the contract road garbage pickup, cleanup.
Okay. So we have discussed, myself and Mr. Carroll, we had paid that out for the past several years. I remember when that came up, I think at the city at the time, and the county had moved to contract that service out. For the efficiency that we think we can do that internally, and because that's not the biggest, we got crews who can do that, and I'm actually going to work toward getting our detail back, and I'm hoping it hits before we get a final budget. If not, that would be an amendment, because I think it would be good of us to get a detail back, which is, less than half the cost of that contract. So far, we have not renewed it. It came up at the end after the storm, so it had not been renewed. So we took it out of this year's budget.
You made a true statement as far as calls. I've never I can't remember getting a call about the grass being cut at the ball field or anything like that. My call was strictly condition of roads. And this is how I feel about it. Not only the things you talked about, but we need to increase it. We need to get our road building equipment back. It was sold off. I've talked to Mr. Weaver in the past, and he has tried to do it. I got roads that they don't need grading, they need building. They've been graded until they're below ground, the whole water. I think of two others that's just in a mess. And you can't maintain the miles of dirt road that we have with the amount of equipment and personnel we got. It's just impossible. And we need to invest in that. One thing about good roads, everybody benefits. It's not money going to a particular group of this, that, and that. Everybody benefits from good roads. Buses can get through easier if we, like I say, if we're proactive on these things. Some of this stuff we see ahead of time, get ahead of it. Like I was saying today, we don't have a military for peacetime. We have a military in case you go to war. And we got to have a road department prepared to go to war when it's time when we have these catastrophic storms. We will have them again. And if we don't invest in that, and make a one-time investment in the amount of equipment we need to do that, then we constantly just gonna be chasing the situation, never gaining on it. And our citizens not going to get the roads and service that they need and they require. It's safety, ambulances, law enforcement. Schools have to shut down when the roads are washed out. And if we don't do it now, while we have the revenues to do it, then I don't know when we will do it. And I know the other commissioners, they probably fight the same thing I've been fighting. And this is something I think we can find common ground on, is to invest the amount of money we need to get our road department back up to par and get the equipment they need to do the job and get ahead of some of these things. Like I say, I know there's always extenuating circumstances on something, but by and large, I think we can get a lot of this get ahead of a lot of it.
I will tell you that the cost of material, you can say this in every department on anything we buy, pens, papers, but when it comes to the road department, the cost of material, I think it's a ton of, you correct me if I'm wrong, ton of GAB in 2020 was $25 and now we're paying $48. Is that accurate? Pipes went up over $1,000. So I'm just trying to equate and be realistic about what we're going to expense. There was 2 graders, a ditcher. There is one thing that we wanted to add was a trailer. You'll see the city has one. I'm still going to work, see if I can talk Kerry out of it, or the mayor out of it. But they had an old trailer they used, not a vac truck, but the trailer, which is a jetter trailer, which will clean out our pipes. Right now, currently, we're having to, have a pole shove into one end of the pipe and potentially damage the pipe while we're trying to clean it out. So, trying to be a little more proactive on how we clean out pipes with our current crews. So that's where I'm at right now with the road department.
Reed, I got a question on the road, because numerous conversations me and you have, and most of the complaints I get, we talked about that. It's a lot of it in the city, and I know most time I call you and you get it taken care of. As far as that coming out of our budget, whenever we do help out the city, is we working with the city for funding whenever we have to do those kind of jobs?
That's a good question. I'll do it like this. And hear me out. So Appling County is blessed in this sense, and have been for years, in that the city and county can work back into and swap things out. And so to answer your question, I would say it's not funds necessarily that we get back. Sometimes I've called, Mr. Carroll's called Moses, to help us solve a ditch problem that we couldn't get to. Or a resident had called, I think the latest one was Brown's Funeral Home that we worked with. And I called them, and we did it together. So I would say to answer your question is yes, we swap it out. You might not see it fund-wise, but you see it in the relationship that we've got back into. If I need something, I can call Kerry or the mayor, and vice versa. They call us when they need something. So we do, and we keep an eye on that, then we have those discussions, and those discussions come back up every so many years when we talk about loss negotiations and allocations for the city. But we're blessed as a community to have that relationship, because I've been in the other ones and worked in some of the other ones where it's not that way. The county don't talk to the city don't talk to the county, and they sure don't like each other. So I think now we've got leadership, have for years, that want to work together for the best of everybody in the community, city or county. But we do constantly talk about the fund swapping back and two.
Reed, you said we may get another road grader, so if we did, are we gonna get another operator and, be able to divide out some of the roads? That way we get to them a little bit quicker? Is
That's
that
right.
what we're gonna do?
That's the plan, was to cut that mileage down to, what did we
Right.
say? We could probably cut it down.
Cause I know we got our county has one of the most dirt roads in the state. I forgot what they said, but if we got another road grader and another operator, and I know Carol and them was working on trying to rebuild the roads, and then we've had two hurricanes and a winter storm. So about time they would get on it, here we'd have another storm. But I'm like Randy, 95% of my calls or more is about roads. And if we're gonna be a team, this is me. The county's gotta work, we gotta work together with our department heads. Maybe some of these departments don't need quite as much money as they get, and maybe some of that needs to be spent on our road department. You know, or if we got the money to put in, we need to build up, like Randy said, our road department to where, because Carol's doing a great job, and if we call y'all own it. But, like Randy said, we just got a lot of dirt roads, and I think it'd be good to add that extra road grader. It's gonna help us a lot. And it costs so much too. I never knew how much it costs to pave roads, maintain roads, and resurface roads. People don't understand. You say it takes 1.3 million to do a mile, to pave a mile. They say, what? You know, I did too. So every penny saved is a penny earned, you know, so.
And there was room in here for an additional truck, or maybe even two, to be able to haul. Because, I mean, we run 5, 6 trucks, 5, we just got 6 of them. And we still could run more, and then when just say 2 of them go down, we having to pull off. We want to get it to where we can do multiple projects in multiple districts at the same time, and not focus here and have to pull everybody to something, an emergency over here. We can already have an emergency crew that's doing that, and it don't disrupt our regular routine, and that's what everybody calls about, is how long it takes to get around grading these roads. You know, we try to target 30 days, but sometimes it trickles a little further depending on the weather, and we want to get out of that. So the way to be proactive, the budget used to be 4.9. It got cut about $1 million off of it, so this is increasing back to the $1 million that we took out, and just a little bit adding the 2 employees and the additional equipment.
And I believe too, Carol, they said when you clip roads, you have to pull a motor grader out of lineup, 2 dump trucks out of lineup to clip roads. And so when you're having to pull equipment from doing their job to do another job, then the job they would be doing is not getting done. There's a road not getting graded. And the thing about it is, when we get back talking about building roads, it's going to take some specialized equipment to get that done, to get it done properly. And we had it, it was sold. And it's time now to bring it back so that we can start servicing our community and in a way that they'd be pleased.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Carroll, I've heard 2 or 3 numbers. What is, let's say in average conditions, what is the time frame it takes for the grader to make it through their area, that 107 miles?
We do shoot for 30 days.
It's about 30 days. And of course, that slows down when the roads wash out and you have to start filling in. It cuts that time, or actually adds wait, a lot of time to that. 30 days. Thanks, sir.
If you've ever done a motor grader before, if you drove 110 miles, you got to get it.
Going to the county shop, it's less, it went down. I did go through and make the numbers on payroll realistic, what we'll stay under. And then just adjusted the health insurance a little bit to make it more accurate, but it is less. Sanitation, it didn't change much, it just 10,000 went down. Jail, you'll see it went up slightly by about 50,000. One of it is making this number, the realistic number, plus the 3% that we've done. The FICA expense adjusting it accordingly, and there was 10,000 in the medical expenses right here with the inmates. I'm trying to see, feeding the prisoners. So you see we budgeted, county's budget every year 188. Well, we spent 176, then we spent 222. We budgeted 188. We're already at 188, 148, so we know that number is going to change. So I made it to budgeted 200,000, and that depends on the number. And that's why you see it fluctuate from 176 to 222 to where we're at now. Lakes and parks, I adjusted slightly. One was the power. I discussed this with Mr. Timmy, and we think and feel very confident that we can hit and stay within this number. We don't have any, you don't see any dock improvements of the Lake Marys and all the same, because we're actually shooting for grants. And once we do realize those grants, if it's the end of next budget year before we get them, they will be plugged and amended. Revenue and the expense. County services, this is the energy care and the money we pay the hospital. You see I adjusted it because we started our IGA, where we reduced the amount that we pay them as basically paying us back. So you'll see that change. The other county services, this is where you see the Heart of Georgia dues that we pay, the Development Authority that we pay, the Appling Connections, which is actually pays the salary for that position, and then the county engagement, which we allot that out for the chamber. You see it has not been expensed, but it's budgeting wise, I'd rather have it in there as budgeted, not.
It's in December.
That end. And that's one thing I adjusted the Appling promotion, because I looked on what was taken out of there, and it was in the Appling promotion on that 24 year where you see it wasn't expense. So that's where I pulled it out. Unallocated, these are the grants, the landfill reserve fund. This is what we transferred to the landfill. You'll see $300,000 was my number. That's what we did last year, actuality. And in 23, it was 257. So I budgeted 300,000. Forestry, you'll see it slightly went up by 5,000. I did put in here under payroll. I talked to several counties, including Paul from Wayne, and they have done work on our county trucks forever. They own, we lease part of that equipment from them when it relates to the tank. But the truck, they've done truck maintenance, plumbing on our trucks when we get them. They work on our equipment, and I'm actually tasking them with potentially pump testing our trucks. The city has actually contracted theirs out. In years past, the city did ours once a year, all of our county trucks, but they've since went to a contract with a company. And so I was talking with Josh with the forestry, and I asked, I said, could y'all do this? And they're well capable. and he would be glad to send his 2 guys to be certified to do it, because you do have to go get the certification. And so in that, I talked with Paul, and I've heard from Pierce, they do a supplement from the county that supplements the state. Well, that supplement, as it worked out, is basically $8,000 for a year total. And you break that out by the number of employees they have, I think it totaled 166. I could be a little off on my math, but it's 8,000 total to the budget. So I did include that. We already paid a staff person out there that supposed to do half Appalachia County Fire reporting and things like that, plus half of her time as the forestry. And so we already had that outline item in, so I included a supplement for them in that if y'all do approve. And that was really the only change. Airport, and you'll see streets, that's the part of the local service delivery strategy of what we give the city. No change there. Recreation, so I did a little bit different with recreation, and I've discussed some of this with Timmy as we were going through it. You'll see here in the capital items there's 100,000, and you also see the change under concessions, concession expense. Years prior, we were paying for the concessions. We would buy the food, and then we would sell it, and it would go into a concessions account. It's the way it currently is now. That concessions account is around $250,000 sitting there. So we've done well in concessions. The point of this is, the reason I took it out, it should be operate on its own now. They should be able to buy their food, expense their food, and it rotates like a restaurant. But that money that's there, some of that can be used. There's fence repairs we know that's been brought up in this room before. We know there's lighting that's outdated, and we got, the other day we had 7 or 8 light bulbs, but we can't find them anymore. They're outdated. So we know there's lighting projects. We know there's netting projects. There's stuff that needs to be done. Taking the money out of the concessions account and put it in capital. So you'll see that 100,000 is actually, I'm showing the expense, and then I'll show it as revenue coming from the concession. Total budgets, you'll see a decrease. Rural fire departments, you've seen an increase here. This goes back to being proactive. I had this discussion with Linton as early as yesterday. We had budgeted, talking through it with him, in years past we've propped up our fire department with SPLOST money. And thankfully we've had it in the SPLOST, because out of all of our fire departments, that equipment ain't cheap. I think it's around $4,500 to $4,900 for an SCBA pack. Just a bottle itself was around $1,600, maybe a little less than that. $900, sorry. And so what I did in this budget was equate for each department to get 4 bottles a year for all of our fire departments. Each department get 1 SCBA a year. And we put in here, we already had it years past, there's a truck. The county department with the oldest truck, we would have $30,000 in here budgeted to buy that truck. Same way we just did with Search, except it was in the SPLOST. So you see, I plugged that money in here to try to stay on top of it, because a fire suit, 10 years, that's the restriction. It's good for 10 years. Same thing with bottles. SCBA's, I think, falls under 10 years. It may be a little less. If we don't start budgeting for that stuff and we're swapping some of it out, there's more than 4 people on the department, I know that. But the rotating bottles, I believe he had told me they have about 7 or 8 bottles that's already bad that need to go and be swapped out. Each department probably has that. So I want to get in front of that, and the county can start being proactive in what we purchase and what we buy. Don't get behind and wait for a big SPLOST to have to prop us all back up again. The only thing, you see the allocation still there for the city. We allocate $217,000 every year for their budget, fire budget. And then you'll see EMA rescue. This is where they've paid out their volunteers, and you'll see I budgeted 50, and we're gonna work hard to even get it close to that. Probation. So right, you'll see here, this is the biggest change. We were, by USDA vacating their space that they had leased from us, I plan to move probation down to that office. We do have to do some slight renovations to carpet and other things because there was some flooding. But moving probation down there saves us around $30,000 a year in rental, where we were renting that building. So you'll see the decrease in that budget. Currently, the total proposed is about 850,000 more than what you seen last year. Here's something I want to throw out there. In 2024, the actual spend of August of 24 was 26 million. The budget was 23. So I'm trying to get more realistic with the budget. As y'all heard from the auditor, we need to be realistic. Even if it's at twice a year or at the end, we need to amend to say what we're actually spending and why. And where did it get, what justified payroll this year? This coming year, when you did that audit, we can say, well, we know we've had 2 storms, we worked a pile of overtime. So we've seen the expenses go up, but we also seen the offset of some of that cost with the FEMA money. That's what I want to get to, is the accountability factor. Here's where we're at, here's why we're having to buy this, here's why the repairs on said dump truck had to be done because it's 10 years old. Things like that we need to amend to. Now if I go, there's only one thing I do want to say. If I come in here realistically and plug in the LMIG that we know we would get, I mean a mouse, so finger thing ain't work too. So if I plug in actually what the amount should be, this is where you see a budget change. I was at 23.8 and budgeting for the LMIG that we know we're receiving unless something bad happens, you'll be at 25,263. Which is more in line with realistically where you were already at in 24 with the funding that came available. So that currently is where I'm at. Realistically budgeting for the project and the increases I discussed with you in each department and the decreases that I showed you in each department. Any questions, concerns, frustrations? You'll see on the revenue tab where we do balance the budget. I did take into consideration the LMIG that does come in. We have already took in $24 million, so we already know that at the end of this year's budget, we're going to have to amend, to make it right, to show what we actually spent. And what we actually took in, we're already at $24 million. So we will amend 2024, you actually had took in that by August, $24,153,000. So I want to be realistic in what we're trying to show. And I counted for, and I showed the ad valorem because I do suspect we'll see an increase with land when the land gets applied. You did see an increase last year because you're already at 5.2 now, and that was when all the values and schedules got changed because of this reassessment. So as that rounds out, I feel like we'll be around the 5.5. I did go up on the utilities revenue because last year we assessed at 36% because of our sales ratio. We will be able to assess at 40% this year, that's projected. So I wanted to be realistic by our revenue numbers as well. And I'm at 25,263,000. So that's where I'm at. just wanted y'all to have the update, nothing to vote on. This was a working budget. Wanted to just kind of get it out there of what I projected and what we're seeing.
Commissioners? If no questions, I'll sleep.
We do have board appointments. That was sent out in your packet. The nominations for hospital authority, and then the DFACS board as well. Now, we do need to take them separately and the appointment separately. Which one did you have coming up on the hospital?
That was Perry White's. We voted to,
We voted to rescind it, but we need 2 more names
correct.
to send with Perry White's name.
I'll nominate Jimmy Twiggs again.
Jimmy Twiggs. Do we have another? I nominate Kathy Mitchell. That's sufficient. Give you 3, we're still putting Perry in.
Correct.
Okay, your next one.
You want to vote on that one, to send that?
We can.
The motion for the 2 names that you've seen, including Perry.
Kathy Mitchell, Perry White, Jimmy Twiggs.
Right.
Do I hear a motion for those 3?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Kent, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Edwards, all in favor? Unanimous. Next time.
Next one is the DFACS board, which is rolling off.
McMillan.
And they included in the package was the requirements of that board.
Jimmy McMillan.
Jimmy McMillan is coming off, so we need to reappoint that position. If y'all have any names.
I do have one for that. Amy Rediger.
Amy Rediger.
Yes.
Just needs one.
If that pleases the board.
For that one. Oh, you mean, yes, just one.
Motion on that nomination.
So move.
I saw Commissioner Barnes first. Yours will be a second. Commissioner Sullers was a second. All in favor? Unanimous. Release agreement.
Yes, sir.
Oh, no. There's Carlos Rook's appointment expires, and he would like to serve again.
They need a reappointment.
Carlos Rook, anyone want?
I'll make a motion to reappoint Mr. Rooks.
Thank you, sir. Motion from Commissioner Sullers. Second. Thank you, sir.
Who?
Commissioner Jones. All in favor? Unanimous. That got the nomination
Yes, sir.
filled in all the blanks.
Yes, sir.
Lease agreement final.
So this is the lease agreement that we currently have with Highland. It's basically renewing July 1st, I believe. No changes, has been reviewed, and so we're good. It doesn't need a motion. If y'all want to renew that, allow them to renew the lease of that building.
Let's read on that building, I know it says that we own the building, right? And is it Appling and Jeff Davis gets to use
They
Use
have, the services are offered for Appling and Jeff Davis.
Okay, does Jeff Davis help us with any of the maintenance or stuff that's required for us to keep up with? You know, it says the landlord has to do all the maintenance and stuff like that. Do they help us with any of it?
It's just an offered service to their citizens. They do not, because they don't have any ties to that building, besides the services offered to their citizens.
That might be a Pineland. Is that a Pineland decision?
On the services, it is.
Yeah.
What's the monthly rental amount?
You got that, 30 on that?
The 2,500? I
I think that's it.
think I remember that number.
2,500 is the Pineland building on Main Street.
And when it comes to repairs, we repaired recently the floor because the air conditioner had leaked and it got stopped up in the drain pan and leaked and it damaged the floor. And one of the ladies about fell through it, so we repaired that.
So there's not an amount that they pay
Okay.
for the Sunshine Center.
Just.
They just pay for the Main Street one.
The Sunshine Center is rent-free.
Correct. They pay their own electricity, internet, phone, all that.
services we pay over here.
Is that normal operating procedure with that type?
Yes, sir. We do have a board member on their board. Each county that's represented has a board member. I am currently that board member. Lee was that board member in the past.
There are no changes to this, Lisa Drew?
No, sir. And it has been approved by legal counsel.
Commissioner?
I'll make a motion, we accept the agreement.
Thank you, Commissioner Kent with the motion. Do I hear a second? Commissioner
I'll second.
Jones with the second. All in favor? Appears to be unanimous. Public defender contract?
Included in your packets is the public defender contract, which does go over our prorated share, which you've seen the increase that I adjusted in the budget discussion. You have reviewed it, legal counsel has reviewed it also, and if it pleases the board, vote to enter. I think that will start July 1st as well. Renews it.
This is the public defender contract. Basically, it's non-negotiable in the fee if we either do it or
Correct.
not, right?
Correct.
I'll make a motion, we approve the public defender contract as presented.
Commissioner Evans with the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Sellers with the second. All in favor? Unanimous. County manager, do we got all the business covered?
We do. All the action items. We do need that.
At this time, we need to go into executive session, personnel litigation and/or real estate. I need a motion to close regular session and go into executive session.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. Do I hear a second? Commissioner Barnes, thank you. All in favor? We're going into executive session. Need a motion to close executive session and return to regular session.
So move.
Thank you, Commissioner Sutherland. And a second.
A second.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. All in favor? We are back in regular session. County manager.
Yes, sir. When I go out of executive session, after speaking with the Board of Elections, I do want to make the recommendation that we take their recommendation for hiring Ms. Sandy Domney as a full-time election supervisor at a pay rate of K-33, which is $50,562.19 a year.
Commissioner?
I'll make a motion, we do that.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. Here's a second. Commissioner Barnes, that's all. All in favor? Unanimous. Next item.
Second item is their recommendation, and also mine, would be, we recommend moving the registrar, Crystal Blaine, the pay scale of F24, which I will read out to you, is $16.61 an hour. And this does come with added duties and training that she is receiving for quasi, if something were to happen, she would step in and help fulfill the elections.
Commissioners,
Make a motion to motion.
Commissioner Jones with the motion,
I'll second.
Commissioner Kent with the second, all in favor? Unanimous. County manager's report.
I don't only have one item. Y'all know what I've been working on is the budget. So I've been daily diving into that, but I do want to read something that Miss Sandy did send me. And I thought it was a good update for this board. It says, County Manager Lovett, we had a successful election for the Public Service Commission on June 17th. The Board of Elections cannot have accomplished this goal without having several county department employees help us. I would like to say thank you to Sheriff Mark Melton and the Sheriff's Department for Security, Mr. Carol Weaver and the Road Department for equipment loading and transporting, and Mr. Dwight Watts and the Maintenance Department for sign distribution, poll workers, and the poll managers and our staff for working together to make this day successful. Also, thanks to the representatives from both Republican and Democratic Party who were present to assist with absentee votes. I would also like to give a special thank you to all the Board of Election members who came to the office on various days prior to the election and on Election Day to help us out. Thank you to the commissioners for appointing such a dedicated Board of Election members. Together we are better. And the next election is July 15th. Will be a runoff for the Democratic candidate for the Public Service Commission, and Appleton County qualifies to hold this election at one polling location, which will be at the Extension Building behind the library. Thank you for your continued support.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Sandy.
Thank you. Been a long meeting, gentlemen. Commissioners, we have anything going on we need to tell the public about?
I believe fireworks are this Saturday night.
28th.
The 28th. Be this Saturday night.
I've heard a lot about fireworks. Friday night.
Where's that?
Thanks, sir. Anything else?
Don't do it.